welcome to the Fairhaven Church Parent Talks podcast, where we desire to equip and empower you as parents to lead well in your home. Today is going to be a great day because we're starting a new series. We are 1 week after Easter, and so we are back into the Old Testament and get to dialogue about that a little bit today. But while I'm here with Todd and Johnny, I have a really important question for you guys.
Okay.
And I will tell you, I've heard that this is a really critical part of our podcast episodes.
Wow.
People really get excited to know this information. So my question, if you were not a kids pastor, what job would you want to do? Oh,
I feel like that's a hard one because I feel like I'll just, because before I was a kids pastor, like doing like studying for that, I did IT a lot and that was fun. And money's not too bad, especially with like growing computer industry.
Okay, the money's not too bad. I actually didn't know what you said there for a second. I was like, what's not too bad?
The money, yeah.
So IT.
Yeah, I'll probably do programming. I like programming. It was a lot of fun when I was learning all those different languages and stuff. So I
do remember, didn't you used to like make keyboards or something?
I did. I still
yes.
do. I still do make keyboards.
Okay.
So if you guys are interested in making keyboards,
Johnny will tell you all about it, how they make different sounds.
What PCB boards to get, what switches.
Wow.
I'm a linear guy, so I would definitely recommend those over tactile or clicky. So
I can't add to this conversation.
It's weird.
No idea what you're talking about.
Fun.
I think for me, I probably would be in the school system as a teacher. I think my
Really?
giftings are towards kids.
Yeah.
Not always education, but I think somehow God would have worked that. I don't know, be like a coach or gym teacher or something like that. I don't know.
I love that you're like, I love working with kids, but, the education part,
I could have done something.
You're a lot of
bit.
fun. So, like, camp counselor.
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Huh.
Those are hard to come by these days.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, very cool. I always wanted to be in broadcasting. So,
well, look at that.
Look at that. Here I am on a podcast. No, but as a kid, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a news anchor, broadcaster, something, and I didn't think that would ever work out, so I didn't do it. But I'm glad we're all here working in the church.
Me too.
Makes more sense this way.
It does make more sense. That's so funny. Okay, so today we're going to jump in, like I said, to a new series. We had finished up the book of Genesis, actually, right before we went into our Easter series. So now we are going into the book of Exodus. And we're going to learn how God used Moses to rescue his people from the Egyptians. And then ultimately, as always, how this points to God rescuing us from our sin when he sent Jesus. So Todd, you get to start us out today.
Okay.
And I asked if you can help connect what we're going to talk about with Moses and the Egyptians to the story of Joseph's family, which we talked a lot about in the book of Genesis.
So there is a lot of content, so I'll try to keep it brief. But Joseph's family had come to Egypt because of a famine, and God used Joseph in that to, basically rescue the Egyptians from that famine. And in that, obviously, his family came to Egypt, moved there, and over hundreds of years, that family grew. The Israelites grew, the Hebrews, till there were many, many. And then a new Pharaoh came to power, and he didn't know the good things that Joseph or his family had done. And because of all of their number and power, he enslaved all of them, basically. And then on top of that, to keep their numbers down, he ordered that all the firstborn males, the baby boys, be thrown into a river, basically. Moses he was one of those Hebrews. He would have been one of those baby boys, but God protected him. He rescued him, and God chose him and raised him up to be the leader who would go rescue the Egyptians through God's power. So there's kind of a nutshell look at it all together. Yeah,
so as Moses, he grows up, we read in Exodus 2 that he fled to Midian because he has this encounter with an Egyptian and actually ends up killing him. And so he flees and he goes to Midian and he meets and marries a daughter of a priest there. But we also know, as we're reading through that God continues to have big plans for Moses. I mean, he rescued him as a baby, and he's going to use Moses in a really significant way. In Exodus chapter 2, verses 24 through 25 say that God heard their groaning, so talking about his people, and he remembered his covenant promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he looked down on the people of Israel and knew it was time to act. And so, Johnny, we read that God is about to act. So what is it that he does?
Yeah, I mean, it's very cool as you read the Bible. I mean, like with Joseph, God raised up Joseph to save the Israelites and God's people from starvation. And here God is raising up Moses to free all God's people from their enslavement. And so as Moses is in Midian, he encounters a bush that is on fire. It's on fire, but it's not consumed by the flames. And here God encounters Moses and says, like, hey, you are in a holy presence. He takes off his sandal, and they converse over what God had desires for Moses to do. And God wanted Moses to free the Israelites from the Egyptians. And so Moses, you know, he was very scared, very nervous, he has all these questions. And I think if God encounters us in that same way, we would be like, oh, who am I, you know? And so it's interesting the responses that God gives to the question. So his first question was, who am I? And God doesn't respond with who Moses was, but instead responds with who God is. He says, I will be with you. And he's saying, hey, my presence is with you. It doesn't matter who you are. And then the next question Moses has, what do I tell people your name is? And then God says, I am who I am. And God points that he himself is everlasting, eternal. He's dependent only on himself. He doesn't need anything to, you know, show his power. He is the ultimate, you know, being. He is God. And the next thing is, what if they won't believe me? And this is where God starts showing his power. He starts, he tells Moses to throw down his staff. And when he throws it down, it becomes a snake. He tells Moses to put his hand in his cloak. And when he takes it out, it's diseased. And he puts it back in and it comes out and it's healed. And God shows his power. He shows that he's in control of everything. And yet Moses, he's still not confident. He says, I am not very good with my words. So in Exodus 4, 11 through 12, God responds. And he says, who makes a person's mouth? Who decides whether people speak or do not speak, hear or do not hear, see or do not see? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will be with you as you speak, and I'll instruct you in what you say. So over and over again, God is trying to reassure Moses, saying, hey, I am with you. I am all powerful. And that power is going with you as you're freeing my people, and you will succeed. And still, Moses, he's not confident. He says, please send someone else. And the very cool part about this story is like, yeah, I'll send you with your brother Aaron. And it even includes, like, he's already on his way to meet you. Like, God is, like, providing for this experience. And he reminds them that he will be with them one more time, and they go. He gets Jethro's permission, and they leave Midian and go to Egypt. So, very cool.
Yeah. Whenever I read that scripture, it's just such a great reminder that God uses who he chooses to use. And it doesn't matter. Like, I love how Moses is like, I don't even have the words. Like, you know, and God's like, do you not think I do? Yeah. You know, it's just a great reminder that when we are faithful to what God calls us to, like, he uses us. And so I just wanted to sit in that for a brief second. But after Moses performs these signs to the Hebrew people, Exodus 4:31 says, then the people of Israel were convinced that the Lord had sent Moses and Aaron. And when they heard that the Lord was concerned about them and had seen their misery, they bowed down and worshiped. So what stands out to me is that Moses has this encounter with God, and the Hebrew people also encounter God through worship. And what we're being reminded of during this story is that deliverance requires us to make a move towards a holy God. And so in hearing about Moses' encounter with God, God tells him to remove his sandals because he's standing on holy ground, as Johnny mentioned. And he also tells him to keep his distance. So Todd, why is this an important part of the story?
Yeah, so God's holiness is kind of weaved through the whole story with, his interactions with the Pharaoh and the plagues and just God's redemption. But God's holiness means that he's set apart, holy, other, transcendent, above all things. And because of man's sin, we're separate. There's that distance there. In fact, later on in Exodus, God tells Moses that man cannot see God's face and live. That's how holy God is. But yet, the neat thing about the Exodus story is it's God who goes to redeem his people, to go after them and rescue them and deliver them so they could be close to him. They would be able to worship him. And that's what he was calling them to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we know, though, that it's important for us to enter into God's presence with the right kind of attitude. And something that, Johnny, I just am asking you is, how can we make sure that we're doing that? But also, how can parents help their kids and students to do that, to enter into God's presence with the right attitude?
Yeah, I think it's very important as a parent, as you're trying to navigate this, to remind kids of God's holiness. Like, it's very hard to grasp holiness because he's perfect. It's very unlike us. But like when we read these patterns of the Bible of people that encountered God, like Isaiah, he falls on his knees. He says, "Woe to me, I am unclean." Or John, like in Revelation 1, he falls to his knees and he is afraid because he understands that he is unworthy of being in God's presence. He is holy, he is perfect, and we are imperfect. And so when we approach God or trying to tell kids how they approach God, we should tell them that they need to come to God with a sense of respect because God is holy. You know, like Todd was saying, like, you can't see my face and live. We need to remind kids that God is holy, but there's also a desire that God has to be with his people, which is why the story of him sending his son, Jesus, to die on the cross is so important because he made a way to fix that brokenness of our sin, our imperfection, so that we can be with God and we can be in his presence. So we should remind kids that we should come to God with respect and like an understanding of who he is, but also that we can find joy and peace and comfort in the presence of God, knowing that he has made a way for us to be redeemed. So
yeah, I love that. And we just got to celebrate that last week as we celebrated Easter and the fact that God in his holiness wanted a relationship with us, so he sent his son Jesus so that we could, if we accept that free gift of salvation through Jesus, we have that opportunity to be in relationship with a holy God, which is just like so incredible to think about, that us in our sinfulness have an opportunity when we accept Jesus to have a relationship with God. It's really powerful. It's really cool. So this story, it just is a continual reminder of how much God really loves his people. It doesn't mean, obviously, that things always go well for them. I mean, a lot did not go well, right, for the Israelite people, for God's people, for the Hebrews. It was a hot mess for a very, very long time. But as I was sitting thinking about this, I've heard stories even of people around us on our staff who are walking through things, or people in our church family who are walking through things that are really hard. God doesn't promise us that life is easy, but he does promise that he's always there and he is faithful. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're in a season of feeling distant from God or wondering where he is, to lean into him. I mean, he doesn't change. He doesn't move. In fact, he is immutable, which means he is unchanging. He doesn't have the ability to change. And so when we feel distant because things are really hard and we're trying to find him, it's us who need to take a step. And that's what we see as they worship God. And as Moses has this encounter with God, they're taking a step towards God. And so that's what we need to do as well. And that's something that we really encourage kids and students to evaluate. Like, where are they in their relationship with God? Where are they leaning in? And really intentionally, we do that at camp. And so I just wanted to take a couple minutes to talk through how it is that we help kids to lean in to that at kids camp.
Yeah, usually during every camp time, we have a call to kids to respond. And so we always give the gospel. That's so important to teach the gospel on every lesson that we do. And we use what we call the gospel circles, which goes through 5 truths of the gospel. And at the end of that, we will always call kids to respond to those truths and have the ability to turn to Christ for salvation.
Yeah. And this year and last year, actually, we also have really been just encouraging kids to continue their daily walk with the Lord. And so this year, that's something that we'll do as well.
Right. Yep. Yeah. At the end of the series, the third night, we will hand daily devotional to each of the kids that come. And it's just a great opportunity for the kids to, as they're coming off the high of camp, just to keep moving towards God daily and scripture reading and just having that time with Him in prayer.
Yeah, that's great. So we have a lot of camps happening this summer, and they're coming really, really fast. So there's been a lot of planning going into that, and there's a lot of excitement. I mean, I would say we're all really excited for camp and for how we know God will work. And so parents, as a reminder, we have middle school camp happening the first week of June. We have kids camp at Northmont happening that, I think, second week of June. Third week of June, Centerville and Beaver Creek are together. The fourth week of June, we have camp at Springboro. And then we have Life Conference just a week and a half after that for our high schoolers. So, man, a lot going on this summer, and it's going to be really great. So make sure you register for those opportunities, get your kids and students plugged in. Because I believe, I have seen it, that camp changes lives. There's something about being at camp where you encounter Christ in a different kind of way. And so I would love to see your kids and students engaged in that way. You guys excited?
Well, I'm excited.
100%. Yeah, it's going to be a great year.
It's going to be great. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us. We're excited to be back here next week. We will talk more about the book of Exodus, so make sure you join us. See you later.